All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA Show, Mastering Self-Confidence. So I got a weird title today, and I want to call it Find Happiness First with No Possessions. And of course, you're going to probably have possessions, right? I'm just saying. But I'm going to kind of give you an idea of what happened to me about 10 years ago when the economy really went upside down and got nuts. And my life totally got turned upside down, especially financially. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. I wasn't working anymore. I had 2 daughters. I was getting a divorce. I think a lot of people were getting a divorce back in 2008. And as usual, didn't save enough money for the future. Was always, spending a ton of money on mortgages, cars, private schools, certain lifestyle, travel, all the same shit. And then the shit hit the fan for me and my ex-wife, and the rest is history. And I always carried around a lot of aggravation because I never made it as a filmmaker to the level I wanted to after making a couple features and kind of co-producing a third. We kept trying to raise money for a slate of films, never panned out, never kind of became who I thought I should be. The reality was I probably didn't belong there to begin with, especially after I actually ended up realizing that after going to California for a few years, longer than a few years. But sometimes you realize where you think you belong, you don't. But you don't know that yet till you get there. In my case, I was really somebody who, I can't say I was always obsessed with possessions, but I had to have a certain amount of possessions or a certain stature of possessions to make me happy at that point in time, but also look forward to, I guess you could say, having certain things. Now, I've gone up and down many times throughout my life. I've had a lot of things, and then I've lost a lot of things, and then I've gathered a lot of things. When when you hit around the 50-year-old mark, believe me, you've had ups and downs most likely. That I know. A lot of people, don't get me wrong, some people start small or start big and they keep skyrocketing, God bless. But for the most part, I think most people have their ups and downs throughout their lives. And if it's not financially, it could be personally. So even emotionally. So no matter what, I think people are, I always say no one goes unscathed. I don't care who you are. But when I hit really hard times, I ended up literally for a while, I left. I went to California. First went for Georgia for a quick stint and realized I did not belong there. And I just wasn't in the right frame of mind at all back then, truthfully. I failed. I felt like on every level I thought I was doing all this, making these films and then working on this slate of films, writing all these screenplays and doing it with the hopes that I could succeed unbelievably and then give my ex-wife, my kids, my mother, and everybody else in between some fabulous life. And it didn't pan out that way, and I felt like probably the biggest failure in the country in my eyes, which is ridiculous, but I did. I felt like an absolute failure. And I didn't know which way to turn. And I still have that in me. I still feel like at times I don't know where to turn. I just kind of move forward. But I went to California to stay with my cousin. Thank God for him. And it sounds like a weird, like these goofy-ass backstories. I lost everything, and I'm on my, cousin's futon. That's basically where I was at, literally. And I didn't have much at all. I even left my car behind. I left it all behind. I had like a suitcase, and for the first time ever, as bad as it was financially, because I still had 2 kids, I knew I had child support, and I had all that shit, and I had, a sick daughter, but she was doing much better, and I was brokenhearted. I'd never been away from my kids, but I had some opportunity. My cousin offered to me to work with him, so it was, and I always wanted to go to California, and it was just something I just always dreamt about doing since I was a kid. So I said, let me go. And he lived in a beautiful town in Carlsbad. It was some of the best times of my life, actually, for being the worst times, just spending time with my cousin who's like my brother. I love him very much, and his brother too. And I went there, and I goof around and call myself like a snobby hippie or a gypsy snob, hippie snob, whatever. So we're in Carlsbad, and it's very beautiful there. And I was able to spend a lot of time in L.A., and then I ended up traveling for him and my other family member, my other cousin's company. So for the next 10 years, I traveled a ton. So I was able to see my daughters, thank God, a lot coming back. A lot of people didn't know if I lived in Florida or California because I was back and forth so much because of my daughters. But I had a suitcase, and not a lot of people knew it. I had nothing. I didn't know what to do, man. And what And back to having no possessions, not even a goddamn car. I had to rent cars, or we'd rent cars through the company. I felt freer than I ever felt before. Now, even at times I didn't have a car, I'd walk. I'd even walk to work. I'd walk to the ocean. I started writing my first book, The Model Bible. I was sick of scripts, and I just had the freedom to just be me for a while, which I don't think I was that since I was 18 years old, because I came to Florida and never really stopped working with my dad, and always worked. But I had the freedom to kind of like just wake up without kids, and just like, even if it was just walking places, just clear my head. I really had to figure out what is going to make me happy, because I've already gone through possessions, owning all different types of sports cars, cars in gated communities, downtown, high rises. I've discussed this, Rolexes, jewelry, everything, travel, all this shit. And I had to think and say, oh, just because you make movies now, is that going to make you super happy? I already made a couple movies. I'm like, I don't think that's the answer either. I had to really figure out what really makes me happy. And I know this sounds crazy. Me and my cousin just kind of bopping around, and me hanging out in San Diego, Little Italy, and me just kind of going to Chicago and traveling. I realized, because I was in Florida for a long period of time, and I wrapped my life up really with just my daughters. Of course, I would see my family in Chicago and my friends and everyone. But now I was traveling, but I was also being able to spend genuine time with my friends and family members. And it was so different. And I got to meet so many different people too, through work, in other environments, and different cities and states. And it was the people. It wasn't the possessions. Like the relationships I started to have with people. That's what I realized was the most important to me. Like if I got in a rental car, I didn't give a shit. What I cared about was going, say if I'm in LA and I'm meeting a buddy who's a writer, director, producer, or whoever, and I wasn't even making movies. Or if I was going to a fashion show, or if I was going out with, it could be some girls I knew, or, going, I don't care where I was at. That's what was fun. That was what was kind of liberating. And it was funny because as time went on, like my cousin, I didn't drink coffee for X amount of years. He's like, he'd go to Starbucks all the time. He's like, start with a chai tea. I'm like, oh my God, this is delicious. I was always drinking smoothies, and I was still working out a ton. And I said, oh my God, this is awesome. I look forward to this. And then we started hanging out at Pete's Coffees, which, oh my God, that coffee was delicious. Again, I realized just a cup of coffee throughout the day, I loved it. Right? And then I was still working out, but what I started to realize was I was bopping between a couple gyms instead of just one gym. And I always loved being a member of two gyms, but when I moved to downtown Orlando, I didn't have that. I wasn't doing it, I guess you could say. So now that I'm in California, or Carlsbad, I was jumping between 24-Hour Fitness, LA Fitness, and my cousin's Crunch Fitness. Loved it. Loved going to new gyms. Again, no possessions, not caught up with it. Again, all as time went on, more and more, and then I ended up, it was weird, the less I wanted, the more kind of came to me. I started getting invited to certain, through friends and stuff in LA, like, hey, and I started making connections, so I was able to go to the Emmys a few times, and like a Sports Illustrated show, and all different types of big shows throughout LA, really nice people. I got to meet all different types of things. I mean, I can't even tell you how many things I was going to for a while, and I didn't even know how I ended up in this situation. That's funny because I was always kind of chasing something like that, and then the less I chased, the more it kind of came to me. It was the craziest thing. But again, it wasn't a possession type thing. And I just learned as life went on that I do love possessions, don't get me wrong, I do. But it's not that. It's not that for me. And I think if you're somebody out there that thinks if you don't have this type of possession, or these type of possessions, or all these things, if you feel like shit because you don't have them, I'm here to tell you that could be the case. But a lot of times what you think you want sometimes that's going to make you feel whole or make you feel better may not always be the case. And I've been doing previous podcasts saying, well, if I get a big house, I'm going to feel happy. I do think, and I've said this before, that may make you happy. Which is, God bless you, or whatever you want to get. I don't care if it's a motorcycle, possession-wise. I don't care what it is, a nose job for all I give a shit. Whatever the case may be, is going to make you happy. Wonderful. But I do think a lot of people wrap themselves up thinking that they have to make more money, have more possessions, have more things just in general. And I'm here to tell you, I don't necessarily think you need those things always. Some people may, but I don't think a lot of people realize others, you may not. Simple things in life, I think, back to a cup of coffee I've discussed, a good meal, some nice wine, meeting up with friends for lunch or dinner. You think that's like a cliche or something. That, to me, means the most. And sure, if I want to buy clothes, like I started buying, I always loved shopping. And at that point in time, I couldn't afford any new clothes. And I always was able to buy whatever I wanted. I started to learn how to go consignment shop, resale shop, and buying vintage clothes. And before you know it, it became a hobby of mine. And I realized, back to possessions, I like possessions. I like possessions, but I realized I like kind of the uniqueness of it. I didn't get always caught up with, so I kind of turned it on its head. I wasn't caught up with wanting to be in style for the moment. I kind of wanted to go back and go vintage, which was really cool for me. And I didn't realize this was something I wanted to do. I just fell into it. Not only that, it just cost a lot less money again. So what became like something that I really cherished as a possession didn't cost me a ton of money. So that's the last thing I'm going to wrap this up with. And I discussed this on my other podcast, and I want to start addressing this more, is people with, if you do want certain things and you can't afford them, don't sell yourself short, because there could be something that you want to do or that you like that is something close. That doesn't mean you're not going to get whatever you want in the future. But again, if you find something that that's very similar, that may bring you a lot of joy, maybe more than what you thought the other one was. Because I've been there before, where I thought this type of car is going to be way better than, say, this one. So, for instance, I had a Grand National when I was younger, and I loved it. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, no, if I got to get the convertible Mercedes, I got it. And I'm like, okay, I really like this car too. It's cool, but I still kind of like my T-top Grand National, maybe better. And then I went on and I'm buying new Cadillacs, new Lincolns, new Hemis, and all these things. I'm like, after looking back, I kind of like the Grand National. And me and all my friends still talk about the Grand National. I also had an IROC Z. Go figure, an Italian kid, with a shift kit for a short amount of time I gave to my ex-wife. We loved that car too. So my point being is, I think with a lot of people too, don't always think like that, something that you can afford or do isn't going to be better than something that you can't. So just something to really think about. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. If you get a chance, check out my YouTube, Rich CELENZA. I've been doing a lot of different videos on there, really fitness related too. So if you're looking for any advice regarding that, I'm also on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You want to reach out. I'm going to also be putting up, I think, some new podcasts with Robert Beninati. My buddy's a co-host. He's a realtor, 365 Realty. I always screw that up with my accent. Realty. Jesus, say it right. Out of Dr. Phillips. He's really cool. And he's doing many different things he's thinking about doing. So that's going to be kind of fun to do with someone else. So you might want to check out his podcast. It's or his YouTube channel. He has a podcast, Real Business, and then he has a YouTube channel that's new, Robert Beninati. So yeah, check that out. He may dig that. All right, take care.